I planted 3 different types of potatoes in this grow, a blue or purple type, Yukon Gold, and Red Pontiac. Here's a quick look at what the blue type looks like on the inside. It's a dark purple color. Normally when planting potatoes in our area, I like to start about mid-March, but in this case I started in late March, so I was already about a couple of weeks behind. I planted the potatoes in 2 rows, alternating each type of potatoes one after another. I placed them a little more than a foot apart in rows that were 3 feet apart. I pressed them down into the soil, but I didn't bury any of them. I also worked in a little 10-10-10 fertilizer before I put the seed potato halves down. Next, I covered up each row with about 5 or 6 inches of leaves and used straw. In a few weeks, most of the plants were starting to peek through the straw. And the blue potatoes were noticeably different than the other 2 types. By May 10th, the plants were quickly gaining some size. It's important to note that when using straw, hay, compost, or manure from outside your garden, it's possible that you could be bringing some persistent herbicides into your garden. For that reason, it's a good idea to use caution and ask lots of questions when buying any of those items. As the plants grew, I added more straw and pulled that straw in around the plants, so just the top of the plants was coming through the straw. Most of this used straw is what I use to cover our banana plants for the winter. By late May, the plants had grown a lot and were over 2.5 feet tall. As you can see, they're very tall, healthy, beautiful plants. As a matter of fact, these were some of the best looking potato plants that I'd ever grown. Even though the tops were looking very good above the ground, you never know for sure until you harvest. By June 20th, some of the plants were starting to get a little bit of yellow on them. On June 26th, I decided to harvest one of the 2 rows and leave the other row for another couple of weeks. This first one that I'm pulling up is a Red Pontiac, and that potato performed very well. I noticed a few things while I was doing the harvesting, and one big thing I noticed that where there was more water, there were more potatoes. Since I'd never grown potatoes this way before, I was a little concerned that the straw would hold too much moisture. For that reason, I didn't water as much as I should have. The sprinkler system that we use to water our yard would actually reach the ends of the potato rows, and where the extra water was, we had extra potatoes. So I am pretty sure that I underwatered these, and next time I'll know better. I didn't do any real digging, but I did pry up on some plants with my trowel. I don't know if you just noticed it, but there was some dust when I pulled up that plant, so it was a little bit drier than it should have been. I think this plant should have had a little bit more time and a little bit more water. Some of the plants in this row were like that. They had lots of smaller potatoes that just didn't have enough time to reach maturity. At this point, I was starting to see that the Red Pontiac potatoes were producing more than the Yukon Golds or the blue type. But by trying different types, I can find out which ones work and which ones don't. Like with the Red Pontiacs, the Yukon Gold did better where there was more moisture. Location and moisture didn't seem to make a whole lot of difference with the blue type, and they remained very small on both ends of the rows. It didn't take too long and the potatoes were starting to pile up. And after harvesting that first row, this is what we ended up with. It's easy to see that the Red Pontiacs produced a lot more potatoes, even though some of them were quite a bit smaller. Yukon Golds are one of our favorite potatoes to eat, so we were glad to get what we got, but they just didn't produce quite as well as the red ones. And if I had it to do over again, I wouldn't even bothered with the blue type. A couple of weeks later, and it was time to harvest the second row of potatoes. One thing about growing potatoes this way is I think you could actually harvest some smaller potatoes and recover the plant and let it keep growing and harvest the rest later. Overall, I'm glad that I decided to grow some potatoes this way, and now that I've learned a few things, I think I might try it again. As you can see, the extra couple of weeks helped out a lot on the size of the potatoes, and I noticed that the best potatoes in size came from the plants that had time to completely die back. Except for the blue potatoes, and nothing I did seemed to matter on those. They were all very small, and some plants had very few of them. Even though I did my best to try to find all the potatoes, I still ended up leaving a few in the ground because later on I had some potato plants sprouting. After the video's over, be sure to go down in the comments and let us know if you've ever grown potatoes this way, and if you have, let us know how it worked out for you. Overall, I'm happy with the way it turned out, and I'm looking forward to trying this again. Here's a look at what we ended up with on the second harvest, and as you can see, the size is quite a bit better, even though it seems like the numbers are down just a little bit, and I'm not sure why on that. As I mentioned before, if you've grown them this way before, let us know about it and let us know how it worked out for you. And if you're just now finding this channel and you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. We'll see you next time.